Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned. Because it's Wednesday, that means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue over on his channel will talk about the same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. And this week, in honor of Occult Detective October, which starts today, we're talking about a story from one of the greatest occult detectives of all time. He probably is the greatest occult detective of all time. And that is, of course, Hellboy. Yes, Hellboy. I love Hellboy, one of the greatest comic book characters ever. This is monster-sized Hellboy. This is monster-sized Hellboy, which has the bulk of the Hellboy saga. The main Hellboy saga can be found in monster-sized Hellboy, but not the story we're talking about today. Even a monster-sized Hellboy book can't have every Hellboy story. And oddly enough, the story I'm talking about today, despite being one of the best Hellboy stories ever, is not in monster-sized Hellboy. So let me put this monster-sized book down and grab a book where you can find this story. You can find this story in this. This is The Chained Coffin and Others, which is an awful good Hellboy book full of Hellboy stories that are great. And the story we're talking about today could be the best Hellboy story. It's not my favorite, but I love it. It's fantastic. So let's talk about that story. And that story is The Corpse. It's The Corpse, which is an interesting little Hellboy story that we are going to talk about right now, Roger. We're going to talk about it right now. So Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, magnificent artist, excellent writer, very interested in legends and mythology, and he put a lot of legends and mythology into his Hellboy comics. And for this story, The Corpse, he wrote a little bit about it, so I'm going to read a bit of that. About 15 years ago, it's much longer than that now. About 15 years ago, I discovered an Irish folktale called Teig O'Kane and the Corpse. And I decided right then and there that one day I would adapt it for comics. Now, Teig or Tig, I'm not sure which one. Teig O'Kane and the Corpse, or Teig O'Kane and the Corpse. That can be found online if you're interested in reading it. And it does bear a strong resemblance to this story. I decided right then and there that I would adapt it for comics. Well, that sort of happened. In 1995, someone at Dark Horse approached me with the idea of doing a Hellboy story that would appear in Capital City's advanced comics catalog in 2-page installments. 2 pages? How the hell do you do that? The challenge was to come up with a story where some new, strange thing would happen every 2 pages. I dug out Teig O'Kane, thinking of the 3 different churchyard incidents, added bits and pieces from other English and Irish folktales, the Changeling, the Bouncing Rock, Jenny Greenteeth, etc., and there you go. Several people I respect and admire consider this to be the best Hellboy story I've done. I guess I would agree, but when I first did The Corpse, I was convinced it was the all-time worst story I had ever done. I don't remember why. So we have a bunch of Irish folktales all mixed up into this one little story that was originally published in 2-page installments. I wouldn't have guessed that when I first read it years ago in a floppy comic. This was one comic book I think had The Corpse and the story Iron Shoes in it. And, I wouldn't have guessed that, but it makes sense once you read it. And so this page was added on after that, I'm sure. And then the actual story starts here with a lonely farmhouse where this poor young woman is upset because she's convinced that her baby, Let me see if I can get the baby. That baby right there, she's convinced her baby is not her baby. But her husband comes home with Hellboy. He says, Margaret, I found someone who can help us. Ma'am, says Hellboy, they've taken our little Alice. Little Alice has been taken. And Hellboy is here to help. Now, this is one of the interesting things about Hellboy comics. And it is one of the things that's different about the comic book than the films. If you ever saw those first couple Hellboy movies, which were good. But in the comics, whenever Hellboy shows up to help someone, actually when he shows up anywhere, nobody's actually weirded out that Hellboy looks like this. They just always treat Hellboy as a normal guy. And clearly he's not. And one of the weird things in the first Hellboy story is that Hellboy showed up someplace with his pal Abe Sapien, the merman, and Abe Sapien went in disguise. So, people wouldn't know he was a merman. But Hellboy just went as Hellboy, because nobody's freaked out by Hellboy for some reason, which I've always found interesting. So Hellboy is here to help out. And so he's going to check out this little baby who seems suspicious. So Hellboy talks to him. He says, I don't know. You look pretty good to me. Yes, you do. Is your mean old mother crazy? I think she is. I've got something for you. What do babies like? Babies like iron. And he pulls out an iron horseshoe and he says, yee, I'm found out. And the baby is actually this dreadful changeling creature, which Hellboy burns with the iron horseshoe. And so Hellboy's problem is he needs to find out where the baby is so he can recover the baby. And the baby tells him, because he's being burned with iron by Hellboy, get thee to the crossroads by the strike of midnight. Under the corpse tree, look you for 3 rough little men and do as they bid. I can say no more. And so Hellboy just gets rid of him, which the parents are like, man, you should have killed that guy. And Hellboy says, no, they play by certain rules, and I've got to play along those rules. And so Hellboy goes off to the crossroads to find the 3 strange men. And that was another two parts of the story. And he goes there, and there's a gallows there with a corpse hanging. And he finds the 3 little men, and they're dragging a corpse along with them. A stinky, stinky dead body. The 3 weird little demon men are dragging this body along. And Hellboy's like, okay, where's the baby? They're like, okay, maybe we'll tell you where the baby is, but you got to do something for us first. You do what we need you to do and we'll bring back the baby. So they've got this stinky old corpse of their friend, and they need the corpse to be buried in a Christian graveyard, but they can't do it because they're little demon dudes. So Hellboy gets the job. And so he takes the corpse on his back, and the corpse holds on to him because it's, kind of still a little bit of an animated corpse. He's dead, but you know how it goes in Hellboy comics. And I have to say, the artwork in this is magnificent. If you just look at the artwork, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's in Mignola's just completely unique style, which is perfect for this comic book. It's wonderful. And so Hellboy marches off with the corpse on his back to try to get this guy buried. He goes to this first church because he's been given a list of 3 churches he can go to. But immediately this knight shows up and bursts out of the ground and says, there's no room. No room for your dead body. And so he has to go to another church. Now this follows along with the original legend. And he goes to different churches, and the next one he goes to, the result is even worse. Nobody wants this body in their church. And look at that. it continues to be just fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. And then we get to the thumping rock. The thumping rock. And like, what's that about? It apparently, when you see the thumping rock, that means there's gold underneath the rock. And the corpse is like, stop, get the gold. And Hellboy's like, what the hell are you going to do with gold? You're dead. And so the corpse is really upset with Hellboy because Hellboy's just like, who cares about the gold? And he just wanders on, which really bothers the corpse. Corpse is like, go back, go back. I was better off with the little fellas. And Hellboy says, shut up. And the corpse says, you're like my old granny. Shut up. Why don't you do something useful like point out Emolgu Fada, which is the next place he has to go to. And as he gets there, there's an invisible barrier. And then we have these guys looking on and checking out Hellboy's progress. And they're like, oh, you know, he might actually succeed in this mission, which really bothers this little dude, who had, you know, been the fake baby. He's upset because Hellboy burned him with iron and he wants vengeance. So he goes to Jenny Greenteeth. Jenny Greenteeth is this creepy, awful witch-like character. And Jenny Greenteeth is going down into the water to get something for him. Meanwhile, Hellboy is at the last place he can go to, and he needs to get the corpse in here no matter what. And look at that. That's fantastic. Just beautiful. But you can't have a Hellboy story without a giant monster in it. So for Hellboy to fight. And sure enough, we get a giant pig. It's a giant pig, which is a demonic creature that Jenny Greenteeth helped bring about. And, you know, the little dude that was the baby is thrilled until the giant monster that he was responsible for raising up eats him, which, you know, is a danger. You know, this is the danger of, you know, summoning demons and monsters and things like that. Not that I would know anything about that, Roger. Roger and I, we have no experience in that kind of thing. No. So let's just continue with this, shall we? Yes, so Hellboy is fighting the giant pig. You know, you find a giant pig, he attacks you, you gotta fight him. That's how it goes. Usually, this ends up badly. But Hellboy, in his utility belt, Hellboy has a cool utility belt full of junk. In it, he's got the charm of Cornelius Agrippa, which is a charm against demonic animals, which was on loan from the Vatican. So he's got this charm, and this charm has helped him out before, but will it help him against a giant pig monster? Well, I guess we're going to find out. He has a little bit of a hard time using it, but eventually he does, and yes, the charm does work against a giant demonic pig monster, which is good information to know. You always want to, you know, now you know. If you have to go up against a pig monster, just go to the Vatican and get that charm. But during all this ruckus, the corpse has lost his arm, which is tragic. You feel bad for him, don't you? Yeah, the poor fella. He's lost his arm, and Hellboy's like, so what? You know, what are you going to do with your arm? You're dead, and you're about to be buried. It's like, I can't be buried without my arm. So he's really carrying on about it too. He's just he won't let it go. So Hellboy has to go find the arm, which brings him right to Jenny Greenteeth, who's eating the arm. Jenny Greenteeth's eating the arm. That's, you know, well, not the best diet in the world. But he gets the arm back, and there's a convenient grave all ready for Hellboy. As Hellboy says, that's handy. And Hellboy buries the corpse, and the agreement is honored. And this little dude's talking to Hellboy. He says, well, done and done. Guess you owe me a baby, says Hellboy. And the Doynes would have raised the child as one of their own. No harm would have ever come to her. Arm, that means harm. Sure, why should she be a person when she could live under a log with you guys? Unkind. And the little dude says, no living child of our race has been born into this century. No more will come. We know this. The years, they beat upon us like ocean upon a stone. We are worn away. And Hellboy says, that little girl's parents don't care. More's the pity, says the little dude. Soon I think the king will gather us and march us down to the shadows, under the world where the old people go. Too late the sons of Adam will cry, where are the children of the earth? Gone. Look for, but you shall not find them. Weep, for they are gone forever. And then the little dude is gone, and the baby is here, and Hellboy taps the little baby gently on the head with iron, and the baby's fine, and he takes the baby home. And that is the end of the little story that was originally published in 2-page installments. And it's an awesome little story, and it does have repercussions later on in the whole Hellboy saga. And it's wonderful. So yeah, Hellboy, The Chain Coffin, and others. You could find that story here. There's also a thicker paperback volume that has the complete short stories of Hellboy that was 2 volumes, but in one of those volumes you could find that story. Sadly, like I said, not available in monster-sized Hellboy, which is strange because you think they could have fit it in here, and it, like I said, it is part of the whole thing. But this has everything else practically. So there you go. The corpse. It's the corpse, Roger. An Adventure of Hellboy, the world's greatest occult detective. I will catch you next time.